Let's also get a sense from Maithili on what she has made up of RBI's first bi-monthly policy.
Well, the RBI Governor Raghuram Rajan has played exactly as the markets expected him to do, and that is in a way very welcome, because some years ago the Governor of the Bank of England, I think it was Eddie George, who said the best monetary policy is a boring one, and I think by that yardstick the Governor has certainly delivered. He has played exactly as he is expected to do, quite in contrast to what he had done in the previous 4 occasions, when each time he did something entirely different from what the market expected him to do. At the same time, there is a certain pragmatism, there's a certain realism which he anticipates and he accepts, and he also says that there are many things that the RBI cannot really foresee at the moment, but given the fact that given the situation as it is today, the rate is appropriately set. So that I think is very reassuring. The RBI has also taken a number of steps to ensure that our exposure to volatile capital flows comes down. So to the extent that an FPIs, foreign portfolio investors, now have to invest in government securities of a minimum maturity of 1 year, that is good, because so far we were having very short, volatile kind of flows, and this discourages that. So overall, I think both his prognosis on the GDP front, on the inflation front, is all very reassuring. It's not very optimistic, but given the realities, it is a very realistic assessment of the macroeconomic situation in India today.
He is talking in terms of that there is a cyclical lift that will take place in the economy given where the economy stands, and as long as that cycle does not end up blowing up inflation, I think he is going to keep rates broadly unchanged in the near term. So I think he's sending out the right notes. He's holding hands with investors, saying that don't worry, I'm not going to surprise you again as long as the data doesn't surprise me.
I think he was being quite realistic. He started off by saying that the reason why he's maintaining the status quo is that the Reserve Bank of India wants the effects of the earlier rate hikes to play out in the economy. And clearly, according to the Reserve Bank of India, the full effect or the full after effect of the earlier decisions have not yet been felt or seen.
I think not doing anything, keeping the rates unchanged, was the right prescription at this point of time when growth is still muted, and at the same time we have inflation. There are incipient signs of inflation coming down, but one still has to be cautious about potential ratcheting up of food price inflation in the second half if an El Nino situation materializes. So there are different pulls and pressures in the economy at this point of time, and also the governor at this stage does not really have a sense of where the subsidies are headed and where the fiscal deficit is headed in the next budget.
They've kind of acknowledged the fact that in absence of a full year budget, and it's very difficult for them to kind of anticipate changes in minimum support prices or other changes in for instance, in fuel subsidies or electricity prices and so on and so forth. So, to my mind, I think the policy statement is still fairly hawkish. It kind of takes into account the fact that the RBI now has a set time frame and path for inflation, and that's what they would be looking at going forward.
RBI is very consistent, and I think if you take the view that you have inflation targeting as they have, then I think he's consistent. But in my view, it is entirely wrong. In a sense, what I'm seeing is the only glide path is GDP falling for 9 quarters running, with the fourth quarter being worse than the third quarter. So I think the issue really is whether interest rates have really been a mitigant of inflation. And if you look at the last 5 or 8, 7 quarters, I do not see that happening. In fact, what I see is interest rates have really impacted growth and have not impacted inflation.